Have you ever had one of those mornings where you wake up feeling exhausted, having slept for only 4 hours as a result of your own stupidity? And everything from that point on is just so much more difficult. You spend the entire day just trying to get through the day, and every task or obstacle seems that much more insurmountable. Hi, I'm Ryan, and welcome to day 22 of the 30 Days Speaking to Camera Challenge. Really wonderful to have you here. So, as you might have guessed based on the intro, that was my day. I ended up trying to record a video on another topic after feeling exhausted and as though it was already something that was a little bit too hard, and my recording was bad, the jack for my mic wasn't plugged in. Everything just went a little bit pear-shaped, and this seemed to be the trend for the rest of my day. So I just wanted to get into that and look at the ridiculousness of life sometimes, and how everything almost seems to, I suppose if you look at it, like attracts like. If we go along that there, or looking at the manifestation that all the self-help gurus tend to talk and prod. But that's very much been my experience as of today. It's one where every single thing that I felt could have potentially gone wrong did. It was still interesting as an experiment just to watch. And at the same time, you're kind of looking at your own internal mind space and wondering if you're somehow bringing this on, if it's based on your reactions, if somehow you being tired is resulting in you being a little bit more short in terms of your responses. I had some difficulties with colleagues today at work, which shouldn't have been a problem. It's things where you feel as though you had to repeat yourself constantly. It's minor issues with many clients. And in the end, the only commonality was me, which is very interesting. It was one that I noticed right from the moment I got up that this was just going to be a hard one, and maybe I just set that expectation. So your mind is almost, again, constantly looking for that. I mean, beforehand we spoke about that realm of awareness, in that you see what you're looking for. If you're expecting life to be difficult, sometimes it just is. It's very seldom that you expect it to be a hard day and suddenly it's all just sunshine and rainbows. So it is very much just a curiosity, which is what it is. But it got me thinking, how many of us does this happen to? How often do people really struggle like this? For me, it is quite anomalous. In this case, it's completely my own fault. I decided to spend the night chatting to a friend and only got to bed in the early hours of the morning, which in hindsight wasn't my smartest decision yet, but it is one of those that we all make these at times. Definitely one that I saw coming even in the moment, but somehow you're just thrilled in that space and don't necessarily look at the consequences, despite knowing what those consequences will be, which is, again, another very interesting thought experiment. So life honestly is just weird sometimes in terms of the way things work out. But looking at it and that potential positivity that one can bring into their day, I feel like can really make a huge difference in your life, just based on that expectation alone, in terms of what you're, again, expecting everyone around you to be doing. If you're expecting hardship, you're going to be seeing it. If you're expecting life to be a breeze, you're probably going to be seeing it to a large degree. I'm not saying that if you're expecting a great life, you're going to have a great life. There are always going to be obstacles and curveballs that do unfortunately come up from time to time. But each of these, again, is just a fantastic opportunity to grow and to learn, to engage with other people, solve these problems, and quite often it makes you that much more relatable. However, at the same time, in the moment, those challenges are hard. To me, I don't think I've had a day like today where everything was as much a struggle as it was. If I'm looking back, probably over the last year, realistically. And understandably, I'm someone who needs a fair bit of sleep. Usually I'm in the region of 8 to 9 hours, so suddenly you're cutting it back to 4 and my body just goes into a state of minor freak out. What is this? So very much, very much could just be that. But still just a point of curiosity. So I'm not entirely sure where the video is going or where it's been so far. It's probably going to be a little bit rambly just because of my current state of mind. So what I was originally going to be talking about was my interest and obsession with communication. Just over the last few weeks, it's one that I've seen that growing need, the impact that communication can have on your life, and how it's something that almost isn't taught at school. If I'm looking at myself recently, I was contemplating going and getting additional degrees and everything else of the sort in order to show my competency, to go and portray my best self to the world and show my educational prowess. But looking at it now, I feel as though a better and more thorough mastery of communication would probably do so much more for not just my personal life, but also for my business life. Being able to go and have those difficult discussions in such a way that you can frame things so that they are beneficial to the party you're negotiating with is hugely beneficial. Being able to put things in such a way whereby it looks as though they're winning. You can frame it in such a way where you're asking exactly the same thing, but your results, the results that you will achieve, are vastly different. And I just wonder, when I'm going into this now, if I had learned this at school or university or any time over the last 3 decades of my life, how different might my life have been? How might I have approached everything, from my relationships to my relationships with family to my business life? I think it's one that, had I learned those skills more effectively as a child or as a teenager, I likely would have made vastly different decisions. I would have been prepared to take that on without constantly looking and saying, worst case scenario, what if? What if this happens and everything goes pear-shaped? Let's rather exist as things are right now. If I look at the fights in relationships where I didn't necessarily look and understand the other person's perspective, but instead was operating entirely from a me type narrative, as so many of us do, especially when it comes to arguments. It's looking at framing the other person as the aggressor and yourself as the victim in some regard. So I don't actually have any of the answers when it comes to this, but this is obviously just a point of huge interest, something that I am now looking into, looking at really dabbling with and grappling with, and seeing where it might take us. My relationship with communication is likely something we'll need to pick up in a future video. These I am trying to restrict to being in the roughly 10-minute mark, and I think we're likely at that. I don't really have a timer at present, so it's a little bit of a guesstimation, but based on the experience over the last 3 weeks in terms of understanding time, it feels as though it's roughly at that point. So that's obviously something I'm really grappling with. Again, communication being one of them, which I think is definitely something I'd like to cover quite a lot in the future. It's something that I think has massive benefits for myself and people as a whole. It's stuff that I think, as I'm going through that, it's knowledge that I think I'd like to share. So if you're interested in sticking around for that, I'd love to have you along for the ride. I obviously still have just over a week left of the 30-day Speaking to Camera challenge. So far, quite all over the place. I do think my competency has been fantastic in terms of where we've gone, and just my comfort in front of a camera and being able to speak to it as though it's a friend, which is a nice change from the pretending it's not there, which obviously was quite something. So yeah, but I think that's going to be it for today. So if you did stick around to here, thanks again for watching. I really would appreciate any comments on any of this. If this is something that you have experienced too, both on the communication side as well as the sleep deprivation side, which has led me to the loonier side of things. But regardless, just have a spectacular one. Stay awesome. Cheers.